Hey everybody, it's Jay. Today I am doing a stream because, to be honest with you, I'm moving on Thursday, and I wanted to do a little something extra this week to kind of show you some things that I've been kind of trying to clean up. And if there's anybody who'd like to join me, have a conversation, maybe help me show people some things today, feel free to let me know. I've got a ton of free time today, and so I'm trying to use it to help you. And I think we can have a little bit of fun if you help take part in this. So how's that going to work? If you're watching and you want to be on with me, just go ahead and put a message in the chat. I will then reach out to you somehow. Just tell me what your Twitter is, and I can always DM you a link. We can do this together for a little bit and have some fun. PAT tokens. Let's find some documentation on it if you want. So let's see. Let's work together, all right? Let me clean up my desktop a little for you. I want to just avoid you seeing my email and all that kind of fun stuff. That ain't for you. But let's go ahead and let's take a look at. We'll look at Azure DevOps PAT tokens. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's bring up the entire screen. Just got to make one change here for you folks, so we don't get a big bunch of recursion. Okay, so we got a little recursion here. We'll get rid of it in just a second. There we go. We don't need to see my Twitter right now. We'll put that in here. So let's take a look. Azure DevOps PAT tokens. Let's take a look at what we got. So we're going to authenticate with personal access tokens. So I see. So essentially what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be creating a personal access token that you're going to use for some sort of other service. Am I getting that right? That's what you've been trying to do? So you've been trying to, let's see, you've been trying to make the script run on Linux that's supposed to be using a PAT and a Git clone in a repo. Okay, you can't get it to work? Sure. So let's talk about that, DJ. When you do this, what seems to happen? Are you getting a rejection? Are you getting some logging? Anything? Because let's take a look at here. Let's go back to there, because creating a new personal access token, custom defined, we create it. That looks all useful. Hold on a second, my phone's ringing. Nothing special. Using my phone as a camera. If you've never done something like this, there's a great piece of software called, let's see, it will just ask you for your TFS username and password. So let's take a look at this. TFS, let's see, Azure DevOps, not using PAT token. Let's take a look at the developer community and see if someone has a common. You must create a PAT that is applicable to all organizations and not a single one. So DJ, let's take a look at that. Did you work with it in a situation where you scoped it to an entire organization? Do you know if it's scoped to a single like configuration? Because it sounds like that could be part of it, because I believe that when you're talking about setting up these types of authentication methods, that there's very, very strict scope within Azure. And so it's really important that you make sure you're following all those instructions. So let's go back here. Let's see if we can find anything. So we're seeing here, try an OAuth token with the REST API. Let's take a look at that. Authorize access to REST APIs with OAuth 2.0. So, like, are you using a web API, like an API based authentication method via like an HTTPS call? Because that could work, or you're working for. Okay, I see. You're trying to do this on a Windows agent. So you're using this to just. I see. I see. So you want to log. So let's see. Let's do PAT token. Close my bank account there. PAT token, Azure DevOps Linux. Well, someone here has created a blog post about it. Okay, well, DJ, here's what I'm going to do. I think that this person has gotten authenticated Git, is doing exactly what you're asking for. Sebastian Nyberg here in this blog post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the chat for you. So it's in the chat for you. If you want a short link of that, let me know. I can turn that into a short link. But I'll show you once again what it is. So accessing Git repositories on Azure DevOps using PATs on Linux. So this is only a year old, DJ. So I think that particular link should work for you. It's a great place to start in this particular situation. But let me know if it works for you. Great. If not, then what I'd like you to do is send me an email, j.gordon@microsoft.com. Just send me an email, and then I will ask one of the team that's worked a lot with Azure DevOps. So let's say like I can ask Abel or someone like Abel Wang to take a look and see if we can get you more info. But just so everybody knows, the question that DJ had originally was he's been trying to get a Linux server to be able to use this personal access token with Azure DevOps. And unfortunately, he's running into an issue. It will just ask for his TFS, Team Foundation Server, username and password. So I looked a little, and it says on this Windows agent it worked fine. Okay. Just a different type of authentication mechanism. So what I would recommend is someone has already put together a really interesting blog post that seems to have solved this problem. You could take a look at it right here. And I can also short link it for you. Give me 1 second. Make it a little easier for you. Just a second, just using my link shortener for you. DJ is just my first name dot my last name, j.gordon@microsoft.com. If you need any help with it, let me know. But this URL also in the chat, this should get you what you need. Actually, let me do it this one. This should get you what you're looking for as far as a guide to getting this built and working. And like I said, if it doesn't work, that's the great thing about the advocacy team, is that we're really willing to work with you to help you find solutions to your problems. So I have a very, very small problem today. It's not very big. Sorry. Cool. DJ, it was really, really awesome that you're asking these questions. And if anybody else has any more questions, I also got some time to demo something. So if anybody wants to join me in a demo, just put a note in the chat. I will be more than happy to bring you in and talk. So I actually want to get a drink from my kitchen. So what I'm going to do is put on a little tunes for a second. Actually got to do it this way. Sorry. Let's stop the screen. Let's share my screen. So I'm just going to be a second, and when I get back, we will have a conversation a little bit more about what's next as far as some of my cleaning up around here, because I want to do some cleaning up. You know, I'm moving tomorrow, and I feel like part of that moving, I want to also move around some of my stuff in my account. All right, we'll do that. Okay, cool. So let's play a little music while I go and get my drink. I will be right back. All right, well, I'm back, and we're going to do some more stuff, right? So what I've done, trying to answer some of your questions. So where am I moving to? I'm moving to Brooklyn. I live here in Manhattan, and I am on my way over to Brooklyn, New York. I'm very excited. Let me see if I can get this up a little bit more. I left all my fancy phone mounting key equipment at my new apartment. So unfortunately, I'm just trying my best to get things working here. I think we can get that. Let's try this, okay? I think I'm gonna have to do it like that. Okay, cool. Yeah, there's New York. This is my apartment's pretty cleaned out, and I am super excited to be able to do something new. It's a really awesome opportunity to go live in a nice, more fun place. So let's talk a little bit more about what I'm up to today. So I've got some free time. And that free time, I just want to use with you today, just to kind of do some cleaning up. I'm not going to be able to look at your chats and questions immediately. I'm going to bounce back and forth because I don't want to have the recursion going on. I don't want you to have to see me, what I'm seeing. And the other reason why is I don't have a second monitor today. I'm doing everything on my laptop. But I still wanted to spend a little time with you because I'm not going to Thursday. So while I have one more second, does anybody have any questions? Is there anything I can show you? Is there anything that you have a problem with? If so, all right, thanks, Shai. No problem. But if anybody does have, please let me know. And while I'm going through this, I'll talk you through some of the stuff I'm doing today. And while I am doing that, I will also so you wanted tips on demo of the IAC infrastructure as code? Yeah, I mean, we can try to take a look at a really simple one with ARM. And I think that that's a really great place to get started. So why don't we do a quick ARM demo? What do you say? All right. So let me see if I can do it this way. Make it a little easier, just so I also want to see you all in the chat. So what I think I'm going to do is let me stop the screen, and what I'm going to do is just share one application tab, and I think that will be able to be pretty useful. So I'm going to just use this tab, and I'll be able to do pretty much everything I want to do today in a single tab. So let's bring up the Azure portal. Ooh, we got some connectivity issues. So what's really cool is when you log into Azure, there's an alert portal. In the portal, there's tons of alerting that's going to give you information about how to find out what's going on, you can go right up here. You'll see notifications. That notification will let me know if something's going on right now. Cool. So sounds like we want to take a look today at some infrastructure as code. So infrastructure as code, I did something on this about like 2 weeks ago, and if you didn't see it, it's a really great 2 hours, or I should say hour, I spent with Zach DePuata, who's on my team. So one of the things we can do with all this, obviously, is we don't have to always build everything manually. We can build things programmatically. We can use infrastructure as code, and we can use infrastructure as code to build just about anything on Azure. And so one of the best places to kind of get started with that is, obviously, we're going to talk about the Azure Resource Manager. So Azure Resource Manager also is called ARM. It is a consistent management layer for Azure. Let's shorten this, actually. Let me just make a quick change here. Sorry. So here is some documentation on the Azure Resource Manager. And long story short, we have a consistent management layer that we can send information via the portal, via the PowerShell, via CLI, and via HTTP capable REST clients, via SDKs through these, obviously, software development kits. We're able to manipulate, create, destroy whatever it is we need in Azure from this consistent management layer. So let's talk about some of the things that you can create. You can create a resource. That's a thing in Azure. It's a resource group. That's a thing that contains resources. And if we want to take them out, we can take them out. We want to put them in, we can put them in. We can move it into other resource groups. We can do a whole lot of stuff. We can, there's resource providers like compute, storage. There are templates. So templates is where we're going to talk a little bit about infrastructure as a code again. We talked about this recently, and I think what we can look at again is some of the infrastructure as code portions. So just get back, because we're not doing this on ARM. ARM is a, what am I? Oh, I'm sharing the wrong dang thing. My bad. There we go. Azure Resource Manager. So like I said, consistent management layer, Azure Portal, Azure PowerShell, Azure CLI, the REST clients, the SDK, all are able to make modifications via that ARM consistent layer. You authenticate to make sure that what you're doing is against the accounts that you're allowed to, because that's all scoped properly. And like I said, here I have this terminology. Here's the scope and the hierarchy of how things kind of come together. So we talked about how templates and a templating system can essentially help you build this. So let's go ahead and let's just go over to Learn. So Microsoft Learn is a really great place for you to do some self-paced education. I'm going to put this here in the chat as well. And so whenever you want to spend some time learning more about Azure, this is a great place to do it. It's a fully self-driven way of being able to learn all these different types of subjects. So what we're going to do is we're going to be a, let's see, an administrator. Yeah. So we're going to be an administrator. And that's the kind of thing we want to learn about. And if we wanted to, we could pick all this, but I'm going to go with advanced. Next, I can mention I want to learn about Azure. I want to learn about GitHub, all that stuff. Next. Cool. So now they give you recommendations. They give you learning paths, all these different things. What I think what we're going to look for is Azure Resource Manager templates. We'll probably just ARM templates. Okay, so here we go. So we can deploy consistent infrastructure by using Azure Resource Manager or ARM templates. So let's give you this one as well. Okay, so let's go through this together. Why not? So let's start it. ARM templates give you the ability to specify project infrastructure in code. That code is typically all YAML. So let's hear from my buddy Abel what exactly infrastructure as code is. Give me 1 second, okay? Let's do this. Sorry about that, everybody. Like I said, I'm doing it live on a different thing than I normally do. So let's hear what Abel has to say.
So what is infrastructure as code? Infrastructure as code is a concept that's really important in the DevOps world, where basically you get to describe the infrastructure that you need for your application as code, whether it's a YAML file, whether it's, it doesn't matter, right? You can describe it however you need to. And it's stored inside of the source control system. So when I'm talking about the infrastructure, these are like, if I have a web app, well, what type of server do I want? How much memory do I need? Do I need IIS? Things like that, right? Or if we're going into Azure and I'm using app service, what type of app service? Which region do I want to deploy this into? How big of an app service do I need? And how many slots do I have? Things like that. So that kind of describes what your infrastructure is. Now, the power of having this in your source control system right alongside your source is now everything is versioned together, your source code, as well as the infrastructure that you need. Now, where the magic really happens is when you use this infrastructure as code file in something like your CI/CD pipeline. So a typical example is we have ARM templates, right, that describe our infrastructure up in Azure. So now during our build process, we of course compile everything, we create our binaries, and then during our release pipeline, we take our ARM templates or infrastructure as code, and now we can on the fly either deploy a brand new environment that is described in this infrastructure as code file, or if it's already deployed and there are made changes in the file, it will go ahead and make those changes in your infrastructure for you and then deploy your application. So infrastructure as code, super powerful, super cool, very, very important concept in the.
Well, we got a little bit of information on what exactly infrastructure as code is. And I also got a little bit better view with my camera going on. Yeah, Frank, this is absolutely great. I agree, Phil. A great series that you can check out. Frank and I work together. They're really smart, and they go over that whole demystifying ARM. And so what I want to do for you right now, so let's go ahead and share my screen again. So what we're going to take a look now to demo. If you go into the Azure Docs and you just Google Azure Quick Start Templates, you're going to be able, or here's the URL as well for it. Azure Quick Start Templates allow you to leverage a whole bunch of open source templates that are in Git that you can use with almost just one click to build whatever it is you need for Azure. And when I say Azure Resource Manager templates can build anything, I mean just almost anything. So we can deploy an Ubuntu VM with Docker Engine. We can deploy a single Ubuntu. We can add a Windows VM to a Windows VM to a domain. We can do all these really either simple or complex tasks in Azure, and we can do it all automated and codified. So let's pick one of them. Deploy an Ubuntu VM with Docker Engine. So let's take a look at what this is. We're going to click on Browse on GitHub. So let me just do that. And so what we can do is look at what makes up the contents of the ARM template. So we've got this metadata.json that just has some additional metadata like his GitHub username, information about this particular template. Then we have the Azure deploy.json, and that is simply all the information that we're going to do that we want to pull up. So we have all these different values. that we can select from in the template, like an admin username that we're going to be using for the VM, the public IP, the version of Ubuntu that we want to use, the string, the string is the resource group location, all these different, like here, authentication type, whether we want to use an SSH key, all these different methods that we can use. So we get every single part of this whole build out in here, including the network. And then what we'll see is there's an extension installed, and that extension is this Docker extension. What does that do? That's going to install the Docker engine on this without having to like log into it, install packages. No, what we can do is upon startup of this whole solution, we're going to make sure that one of the things that happen is that we have Docker engine installed so we can actually build our containers. So what else do we have here? We have our parameters, and that's just some information that we want to have when we're building. So like our pub key, if we wanted to have this pre-filled, I could actually just pre-fill this gen unique with my username. The same thing, I could have a DNS public name. So if I wanted to be specific and I wanted to pre-configure this stuff, I could put all this in the template. And so running templates, you can do from a few different places. You can run these templates via an API call. You just push it using whatever language you want. You can use the Azure CLI, which built right into the Azure portal. Or you can do something super easy, which is deploy to Azure button. But before we hit the deploy to Azure button, let's visualize. So this is another really cool part of working with ARM templates. There's this ARMViz plugin that exists. And let's see if I can shrink it a little so you can see it at the top. But anyway, I need to make it bigger. But what you can see is this will visualize the actual resources that we're going to create by using this ARM template. So what it does is it says we're going to start from, let's find it. So it starts with this virtual net, creates a virtual network resource group, creates a public IP address. So it's actually showing what the dependencies are. And you can see that dependency here. We create a network interface that's eventually going to go into that virtual machine right here. And we can actually see if you click on all these things, they're all just visual representations of this YAML that is ready to go. So why don't we take a look at what we can do with that YAML, all right? So we saw here, this is the visualized look at the quick start. Let's go back to template. All right, so we can click this deploy to Azure button. Let's do it, all right? So we click deploy to Azure, and what it actually does is just takes everything that we have in that ARM template and it passes it over to the Azure portal. So like I said, we could have done this with a CLI or something like that, but in this case, what we're going to do is we're just going to deploy this ARM template right from the portal. So if you take a look right here, Docker Simple on Ubuntu, that was the repository name. And if we click here, edit template, we're going to see this is the exact template that we were looking at before. And if we go to edit parameters, we can actually specify some specific parameters if we really want them. In this case, we've got Ubuntu 18.04. That's already done. So we'll save this. And now what we can do is we can customize what we want like we would any other setup. So we're just going to say new resource group, and we're just going to call it Docker box. And so some of the things, like I said, we already had filled out, and the things that we haven't filled out, we'll just pop in. So East US was pre-populated in that template. The admin username, we're just going to go with J. The DNS for the public IP address. So that's the actual like host name that we're going to be creating. So in this case, we're going to call it Docker Box J. Okay, so it's just fully qualified domain name that's going to be populated, and that's going to be the host name. All right, so admin, so I'm picking, for this case, just because it's a demo, I'm just going to go with a password. And let's just type up a temporary password. Oh, I know what to put in here. Always use a nice complex password. Nice and complex. All right. So now we've got all this information filled out. We don't need to edit the parameters because anything we want in the variables that we need are right here. So let's go ahead and click review and create. So let's talk about what happens here. We have a validation error. It's time to find out why. There's a violation policy. What's that about? Well, let me tell you. If you have a policy that exists in your account and it's using something called, say, Azure Security Center, if you are not permitted to have, say, a virtual network that's open to the world, then something like this won't work. And that's like a really interesting thing that you learn about. So let's go over and let's look at the template. Let's look at the network security group. This is the problem right here. We're allowing 22 to the world. We don't want to allow 22 to the world. So what I think what we're going to do here is, instead of doing this allow 22 to world, we're just going to type deny. Why? Because we'll fix the security, or I'll modify this in the future to make our template more customized. But just for today, I'm going to go ahead and add deny. Let's go ahead and click save. Okay, let's just go ahead. We'll add our resource group again. So we'll just call it Box, admin username, J, standard VM, all that stuff. Like I said, a password. But yeah, it's really great that we've got those guardrails, so that makes sure these policies prevent us from actually being able to just set things up. So now you see the validation passed this time, and that's because we're not allowing SSH to world. So let's go ahead and click create. And so what's going to happen now? Well, let's talk about it. So right now, Azure is going to go through the process of creating all the resources that we asked for. Okay, so we don't have to assume, we just know. There's no assumptions about what's being built, what's not being built. We're just doing our best to make sure that the things that we expect to be done are in code, and that code is going to eventually produce the resources that we need. So why don't we go ahead and let's take a look at all the stuff that was built. All right. Still deploying. Let's take a look at the deployment process. So right here, you'll see we're still deploying our new VM setup. Like I said, with a Docker engine installed. And so right now, it's building the virtual machine. Let's go to this resource group as soon as it's done. And then we'll go ahead, we'll make modifications. We'll log into the machine. Maybe we can log in and even create a container. So let's do this one step at a time, okay? Right now. Hey, and what's great is that if we don't want to SSH into this machine, we have alternatives to using standard SSH. So now we're ready. Let's go to the resource group because our resources are now ready. So all of this is been codified and created, but what we can do is, if we want to, we can export what we just created right here. So if you look on the left side, so for future deployments, what we can do is we can export exactly what we did here, including, you see, here's this deny IP. We could just delete this entire portion of this network security group row out of the template and then redeploy the template with our new need. So let's take a look. Oh yeah, sorry. You want to know if you can take the existing. Yeah, the whole point of this is you should be able to reuse everything. And then some of it should be, and it should be idempotent if you run it against the same environment. So if you make changes to that environment and they can be made within the context of Azure, it will allow you. Like the idempotency allows you to be able to rerun those, like we talk about with like atomic database. We want to be able to do things and make sure they happen. And if they already exist, we certainly don't want them to reproduce things that we didn't ask for. We only want them to build what exactly it is we need. All right. And when we build it, we don't want it to delete, erase unless we ask it. So cool. So let's take a look again at the Docker box. It's all up. Here's my VM. Now there's a problem. I can't SSH into this IP address. Why? Because I disabled SSH. How do I get into this to start doing some Docker stuff? So what we're going to do is we're going to do connect Bastion. We've talked about Bastion in other sessions, but let's use Bastion. So when I click use Bastion, I need to create an additional subnet. It's a private network. And we're going to use a Bastion host, a jump server. It's a machine in between. We don't need to go ahead and SSH and create a hole punch. We can use an internal service. So what we need to do is create an additional subnet within the network that allows us to have a private network that exists. So what we're going to do is just see we have this private subnet range. We just give it this name, Azure Bastion subnet range. Azure Bastion subnet. This is the default name that you need to have, and you must have at least, I believe it's a /27 range for your private network. So if you need to know more about subnetting, there's plenty of documentation out there. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to add a subnet right here so that we can create our Bastion. So we've got a subnet. It's on a private separate network. And what we can do here is now we've done this. We've done all this. Let's go ahead and click create. Let's see, it should. Azure Bastion subnet. All right, I know what to do. Let's just go back to overview. We've created that. We'll just go back to Bastion. We'll use Bastion. We've already created that subnet. So now, yep, see, it recognized it. And so now it's going to create a public IP address. That's where we're going to actually connect from. We don't actually need to know that IP. We don't have to do anything. We just need to create this. So we're going to go ahead and create this Bastion. Let's talk about what's going to happen. So right now, Azure is going to create a kind of in-between server in the East US region. And what can we do with that? Well, that in-between server can be used to do things such as log into a number of services, or actually a number of servers, whether they are Linux or they're Windows. As long as they are on that same subnet in that VNet and they're sharing that same region, you're able to go into those servers and modify them without actually having to SSH, like I said, throw in the hole punch, stuff like that. All right, so we're going to let that run for a few minutes, but let's just briefly just review what it is we actually looked at. Give me 1 second, and I'm going to share my screen again. Let's just share this whole tab. I think that'll work. Cool. So let's go back here, and let's go to those templates. So ARM template. Here's the quick start templates. And so we've done something like a virtual machine, but there's other types of things that we can build. Let's take a look at some of the other things that we can do with this. So if we want to create a storage account and a blob container, another common thing that you will do infrastructure as code for. You'll use a template to build, say, if you need a storage account. And this is the same type of situation. We are able to build our storage account with a name, container name of where the blob is going to be, and the location. So as you can see here, the last time we did this, what did we do? We clicked deploy to Azure. This time, what are we going to do different? I am going to clone the repo, and then I'm going to run the command line. So let's go ahead. We'll browse on GitHub. And actually, we don't even need to clone this. It's already public. So let's do that. So we've got some commands here on how to run it. We can either run it with the command line or using PowerShell. So I think what I'm going to do, let's bring up the command line in Cloud Shell. All right. That'll just take me one less thing to kind of worry about. I don't need to run it locally. Why bother? So what we're going to do is essentially build this thing. We're going to follow the instructions that Lee has put in there. Then the template was originally written by John Downs. And we're going to show real quick how it gets invoked. All right. Let's see. Is our Cloud Shell up? Just waiting. It's sometimes if I have a bunch of files in there, so it can take a little bit. But let's grab these two. So the two command lines say that, one, we need to create a resource group. We've already got a resource group. So we're just going to use that. And it is, once again, named. Let's go here. And we'll do, I think it's Docker box, but let's just make sure. So we can just type AZ group list, and we'll put output equal table to make it look pretty. Yeah, it was Docker box. Cool. And our Bastion is up. Cool. So we get to do that next. Let's finish this, and then we'll just show you that our Bastion is up. Right. So let's grab this command right here, which is the command that we're ultimately going to want to invoke to create our two new resources. And I'll go to the GitHub repo so that we can eventually see what we're building. So we're using this template, and we're just going to call this template via HTTPS. And it's going to basically just fill out a few of these parameters that will create our blob. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's paste in this. I'm just going to paste. Ooh, wrong one. Let's see. Okay, so we've got some things we just need to fix in that. So let's just do it this way. Let's just type code. And we can use a little mini code editor built in the Cloud Shell. So we can paste it in here. Where's my word wrap? We can't do it with word wrap. But okay, so what we really need to do here is go ahead and make some changes. So what we're going to do is a group deployment of these resources. And so we're just going to fill out what they recommend. So let's take a look. So there's some default storage account names and container names configured in here. So let's take a look at what those are. Oop. My bad. We've got some default names. So the default value here is just logs. We can customize this if we want to. And see what it creates is it creates a storage v2 hot access tier. All right, so then let's go ahead and run it. So all I'll do is create the My Resource group, change, and I will call it Docker box. Now I'm fairly certain that I can pass those variables. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at if we can pass those variables. Do a help params. We can specify a parameters file, looks like. And let's take a look if there is a default parameters file. Sorry. So let's go back to the GitHub repo. So here's the parameters file. So why don't we just go ahead and I'm just going to copy the raw. And then what we're going to do is just going to dump it in here. Let me see. How do they call it? Params.json. So we're just going to call it params.json. Sound good? Okay. Okay, so we're going to grab our JSON. I said this all in YAML before. My bad. I meant to say it's in JSON. I sometimes get a little brain broken. So let's grab this right here. And then what we can do now, and so this is useful because now we can add this to our code long term if we want to. So we're going to actually be able to put the storage account name right here. And so what we'll do is we'll set the parameter to DockerBox J. Okay, that'll be the name of our storage account. And so now what we need to do, let's take a look. How do we specify our parameters file? Here we go, right there. So let's try it. Let's put this here, parameters, params.json. Is that what I called it? Yep. So let's give it a shot. Running. So it's using the template that is in HTTPS and GitHub, but it's using a custom parameters file that you saw that I put right here into my Cloud Shell. You could have put this parameters file, say, in anything that you, so if you're running it locally and you have a terminal with AZ, if you wanted to run the parameters file in PowerShell, you've got it. So there, we're done. It's built. There's our new storage account. Let's go back into everything here. We'll go into DockerBox. There's our storage account. And much like everything, every single thing, it can be exported into a template at some point. And so that's basically what we just did, is that we just created a template and automated the process of creating something that probably could have been next, last. And so if we go into it, we'll look at the container that was created, and it's created logs. So that's just the default that was in the template. If we wanted to, we could have modified the parameter file that would have actually said, well, let's not create the container as logs. Let's create the container as, say, something like my files. And then if you wanted to run some sort of script that eventually uploaded a bunch of files, you could do that. So, hey, our Bastion is done. I want to kind of go back to that if you're all right with that. So let's go back to the dashboard main. And let's talk about, now that our new DockerBox server is up, let's take a look at it. So here we are. We have DockerBox VM. We want to connect to it. We can click Bastion. And so this means we don't have to set up an SSH rule in our firewall or anything like that. All we really needed to do in this situation is set up a service between our server and our Azure account. And somewhere in between, we're allowed to log in via this temporary computer that gives us access to all these resources that we just specify. This is what I want to have accessible, and I don't want to do much more than tell you the information I have. And that's username, password, subnet, connecting it all together. So I think we're getting pretty close to being almost done. I'm just checking before we get started. I just sending out some tweets and making sure people know what's going on. If you got any questions, of course, like I said, get in touch. Let me know what's going on, because I'm going to be done in about maybe another 15 minutes or so. So I would love to hear if you've got any more questions. Went ahead and did a quick demo today, and I thought ARM was a decent demo to do. So let's use Bastion. Okay. So Bastion allows me to choose whether I want to use an SSH key, a username, a password. And we didn't use an SSH key. I just wanted to do something quick. So I'm just going to type in my username, and then I can type in the password. So what it's going to do is Bastion's going to pass those pieces of information that I just provided, and then going to Bastion appears unstable. What are you talking about? Some kind of network thing is going on here, but it seems to be up. It's just seems to be having an issue. No big deal. Let's also look at another alternative. Is if we wanted to, how many of you were old sysops, sysadmins, and you had to look at machines via a serial console? We have serial console access. All we need to do is go into our, I believe, configuration. Let's see. We can update this if we want to. Let's take a look. I believe what we need to do is go into diagnostic settings here, and we need to enable guest level monitoring. So it's going to get more information about the virtual machine. Let's see, did that ever log in? I wonder what's going on here. Interesting. Never had that happen before. Let's bring it up again just to be sure. Maybe I'll bring it up another window. My Docker VM. Connect. Bastion. Use the Bastion. J. Hey, sometimes when you do it live. You know, what can I tell you? All right, so we're updating guest level monitoring here, and then what we'll do, I think we can enable the connection now. Let's see if serial console is available now. Okay, it's still configuring those other diagnostics. So let's go also to boot diagnostics, settings, and let's enable that with a storage account. Click save. So now we're also going to get boot diagnostic information. We should now be able to get into the serial console. We just need to wait for everything to complete setting up. All right, here we go. Let's go into there. Whatever happened here. There must be something strange with the Bastion host. I'm not really sure. I've never seen this before. Peculiar. But anyway, let's go back to serial console. So it is not fully compatible with Bootstrap. Click here to change your boot diagnostic storage. So okay, let's do that. So we need to go to boot diagnostics. We need to settings, enable with a custom storage. So let's just use this one that we created for Dockerbox J. All right, because we need a place to actually store all of our boot diagnostics. Cool, so that's done. Ooh, there's the screenshot, and then here's the serial log. So this is another cool thing that I like to do. So now I have the serial console, and this is if you're using username and password authentication, this is a really good last ditch effort of getting into machines. So I can just type J, just like I was on the desktop computer. There you go. And if we wanted to do that via the network, via SSH, I know we said we didn't want to. I'm not really sure what's up with Bastion. Like I say, sometimes you do it live. We'll go to that allow allow 22. What I'm going to do is I'm going to allow any port range. I'm going to switch that to allow, but instead of saying the destination any, I should say the source any. Sorry. I am actually going to use a service tag. And the service tag I'm going to use is Azure. Let's find shell. We're going to use Azure Cloud here as a service tag and allowing port 22 in. So let's go ahead and save it. And so that should allow me just to SSH in just from the Cloud Shell. That's it. It should allow me just from the Cloud Shell because it's a security role only permitting a service tag of anything sourced from the Azure cloud. So let's look at the public IP address. Pop up the old Cloud Shell here. Okay, maybe, is that still going? Or did I do it wrong? Let's see. Let's try this again. It happens. At inborn port rule. So source, service tag. Azure portal. That was the problem. Sorry about that. Let's just modify that rule. It's supposed to be Azure portal, not Azure cloud, because we're accessing it from the portal. So there. This is why we do this together, so we can learn, right? Oh, and there, see, the change worked. Right here, let's click yes. There we go. And let's do Docker. There's a Docker engine. And so we did everything. We got our network access. We built a bastion. We'll figure out some other time why the bastion wasn't working. And we got, I think, a bunch of stuff done in just like about an hour. Did a demo, tried to answer some questions, and kind of just getting myself a little bit of work done today before I take on a very, very long, arduous day ahead of me tomorrow. So let me pull up some goodbye songs because I like to do that. That's my thing. Let's go ahead and let's share screen and a Chrome tab and a disk. We'll share my audio. We'll share. Cool. Anyhow, it's always fun to have you spend some time with me. I always have a fun time, and I hope you do too. I will not be here Thursday this week. I'm going to be moving, and I just won't be able to do a show. But I'm glad you got to spend some time with me on this particular show. And hopefully, when I get back into my new digs, I'll be able to show you even more fun stuff using Microsoft Azure, talking to you about how to get started, leading you to the AZ900, maybe getting you to the AZ104, teaching you a little bit about DevOps, teaching you a little bit about infrastructure as code, but hopefully just making sure that through this process, you're learning about Microsoft Azure. So I got about a minute. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. If not, I guess we'll talk to each other on Twitter. You know how to find me at JDestro, at AzureFunBytes, and at wherever you need me. So if you need my help, I want to give you my help, whether it's on Azure or something about DevOps, you tell me, I'll do my best. So anyway, thank you very much for joining me this week. I will see you next time on what is more regular Azure Fun Bites, but it'll be an Azure Fun Bites 90. Take care. Bye-bye.